Hello, everybody. Welcome to Analysis. I am so excited about teaching this class this semester. This is one of my most favorite things to teach, and this is going to be a lot of fun this semester. I'm really super excited about it. There's a lot to tell you about the way the structure of the class will go and what to expect. But let me jump in at the beginning by getting the bad news out of the way. First off, this is a hard class. This is a really, really hard class. It's going to take a lot of time. We're going to do some really cool and interesting stuff. We're going to do, all of the background and theory behind lots of really cool and interesting stuff. And that means that it's going to take a good bit of time to do. Now, the good news is, right, this is really cool, interesting stuff. I love teaching this. What you should think of analysis as is it's really like the theory behind calculus. This is sort of like a calculus theory class. So you should, I hope, by the end of this, be very well prepared to be a calculus teacher by the time we're done. Now, you those of you who are watching this video, taking the class this semester, as we're making our first run through of this class, may be thinking, wait a minute, I wasn't planning to be a teacher. We have an unusual class because this is the first time we've taught this class as it will be taught in the future to teachers. So this class was designed for people who are going to be teaching high school to give them the sort of background behind calculus. Now, I know that this semester we have lots of people who are math majors who aren't planning to be teachers, but are in this for one reason or another, and we are so thrilled to have you as well. But remember that the original purpose of the class was designed for teachers, so there will be questions as we go along. We'll ask you to think about how would you explain this if you were a high school teacher, or when you will be a high school teacher. And if you're not going to be a high school teacher, just pretend like you are. And those questions help you too to think about how you explain stuff. In fact, what we're really going to be doing for the vast majority of this class is creating explanations. We'll call them proofs, but they're really just explanations for why things are true. We're switching now from working problems to explaining why things are true. And that's really important, and we're going to really kind of lean into that part of the class because that is exactly what you do in your professional teacher. Now, again, I know that some of you who are taking the class will have had a class called Introduction to Proof before. And some of the things we'll be doing at the very beginning, I hope, will seem familiar because the people who are taking this class who are education majors would not have necessarily taken Introduction to Proof, and that's perfectly okay. So, for those of you who had some of the material that we're going to see at the beginning, then that'll be great. Maybe this will solidify your understanding of all of that. For those of you who haven't, it'll be fine. It'll be really hard, but I think that you won't have any trouble figuring it out if you work hard and especially if you ask questions when you get stuck. Okay? So again, the goal here is to, for those of you who are going to be teachers, make you prepared to teach a calculus class. Okay, so what all does this class involve, right? I hope I've scared you a little now. That's kind of the point. But don't be too scared because it really, really is going to be awesome. I'm super excited about this. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is obviously this is an online class. And so if you haven't taken very many online classes, then let me remind you of how this is going to be different than if we were doing this face to face. If we were doing this in a face to face class, then I would remind you of the due dates constantly, right? I'd see you maybe two or probably three times a week. And I'd be saying things like, remember, the homework is due on this day, we got a test coming up in 2 weeks, and so on. For this class, I'm going to send out email reminders or post things on the discussion board, and that's it. So if you don't keep those email reminders, then they're gone forever, and they may only come, once. I may send one email reminding you, that we have homework due this week, instead of seeing you in class and saying it 15 times during the course of the class. So one hint that I think will help a lot with this: go into your email folder. I'll be sending things to your, of course, to your TTU email address. Go into your TTU email, make a folder called, analysis class or emails from that idiot professor or whatever. And whenever I send you something, or we have a discussion about anything, from other students in the class by email, save those in that folder because you'll want to be able to go back and look at those emails easily without having to search for them because it very well may be that I send out an email that says here are all the things you need to remember for the test, and if you lose the email, then you'll be scrambling around trying to find it and this sort of stuff. Now, the very strong disadvantage of a face-to-face class is that the teacher talks and does class, and then it's gone, right? Whatever the teacher says in class, once class is over, it's gone forever. For us, it's much better. All the lectures are going to be online. You can watch it and rewatch it as many times as you want to, which is great. Now, the one advantage that face-to-face classes have, right, is that you could stop class anytime you want to and ask a question. If you get confused about something, you just raise your hand and say, "Whoa, whoa, 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 back up here. I did not get that at all." If you get stuck with our video lectures, right, you're going to have to email me a question or post it to the discussion board and wait, maybe a day before you get a reply. Hopefully not that long, but it may take, 24 hours before I get back to you, depending on the time you email and so forth. So that's a little less convenient. Um, but if you're in a face-to-face class and you're asking questions, those questions that you get, those answers that you get, are gone forever, right? If you don't write them down, if the teacher answers your question and then you forget what he said, then it's gone. Um, the cool thing for us is when I answer a question, then it'll be in an email that you can save in a folder in your email or on the discussion board. You can go back and read it later. Now, one thing that's also really cool about an online class is that our exams are not going to be at a fixed date and time. There'll be a window where you can take each exam. So we'll have several days where you can log on and take the exam. The flexibility of an online class is part of what makes this really cool. Now, I know some of you will be student teaching or are involved in out in the schools, during the day. So this makes things much easier for you. The homework and the exams can be done, anytime, day or night. The computer is sitting there waiting for you. Instead of me proctoring the exam in class, where you have to sit there and take it during class, you'll still be proctored, but we'll use your webcam and Proctorio inside of the Chrome browser. Now, all the details of that, and there are a lot of details about how that works, are in the Start Here folder in Blackboard. So as you go through the Start Here steps, you'll learn how to use Proctorio and set things up. It's not that difficult or complicated. You'll definitely need a webcam. If you have a laptop, that may be the easiest thing because a laptop with a built-in camera and microphone um, works really well. You don't have to have a scanner or a printer, but if you do, that's great. You can always get away with using your phone instead of a scanner. That's easy enough. If you don't have a printer, that's even okay. If you do have a printer, you can print the test out and take it on paper. If not, you can just use your own blank blank is important, your own blank paper, blank before the test starts, I mean, to take the test, right? You take it on the test on paper where you've carefully written all the notes and definitions ahead of time. But you have blank paper ahead of time, you can take the test on your own paper and that'll be fine. The webcam will monitor things. Chrome is necessary to use Proctorio. The Proctorio extension will use your webcam to watch you. It'll watch what's on your screen and make sure that you don't cheat. That's the way it works. I can watch the video, see how things work, make sure that everything was legitimate and all the up and up. So really cool system and lets you take the test at a time that's convenient for you. Um, in a face-to-face class, you have to wait until you get back to class to get the test. For us, I'll grade your homework and your tests, and you can see them in Blackboard with them graded. Now, one thing about Blackboard that's a problem is I'll be able to write on your PDF files. You'll upload everything as a PDF file, not a JPEG, not a PNG file, PDF, because I can write on PDF files in Blackboard. I can't write on JPEG files or other image files in Blackboard. But I can mark on them. I can say, -3, and you should have put this here and moved this there and say it differently. Um, but there is a little bit of a technical problem with Blackboard in that I'm only allowed, well, not allowed, but Blackboard it's only programmed to use black ink to write on things. So I'll be writing in black ink over what's probably black and white letters that you've scanned, and it only has one size or thickness of ink that I can write with. So sometimes it can be really, really thin depending on the resolution of your PDF file. Again, that's a technical problem with Blackboard. If it were red, it'd be easier to read, but it's not. That's just the way it is. Um, and I have to write and draw, of course, with the trackpad or the mouse. So it's tricky to write out very long things. If I have to write out things that are very long, I'll type them in the comment box, and you'll be able to see those when you look at your test. But I'll be able to give you feedback. It'll be really cool. You'll be able to see what you did wrong or and why you may have missed anything, or how awesome your proof was when you get it right. And of course, if you ever have any questions, you can always email me and it'll be great. Now, for those of you who are on campus, you can also stop by my office. I'm in Math 117I, which is on the first floor of the math building, all the way at the end of the hall, the opposite end of the math building from the tutoring center. Stop by my office anytime. I'm glad to visit with you. Those of you who aren't anywhere near Lubbock, that's okay too. You can always email me, and I can set up video chat stuff without any trouble using Blackboard Collaborate Ultra also. So we won't have fixed online times where we all visit together as a class, I don't think, unless it seems that we really need one and people want to do that. But I can set those up, whenever it looks like we do need it. So if you have a question and you're not in Lubbock and we need to visit about something, we'll set up a time when we can visit online. Okay, so what are we going to do in this class? What's this class really about? Well, the first semester, now, again, some of you aren't planning to stick with us necessarily for the second half, but for the people who are going to be teachers, who are education majors, who are required to take the first and second semester, the first semester looks like this. We'll start off talking about just logic and proofs. Um, Very, very basic stuff about how do we tell if an explanation is right or wrong. How do we think very clearly and logically about it? What we're going to get out of this chapter is really the language and the vocabulary for us to talk about whether you've later written an explanation correctly or not. So that when we get over, into the end of the semester or into the second semester, and you're writing out explanations of things, and I say, nope, this doesn't work, I'll be able to explain why. I'll be able to say, remember that this logic rule is what you've violated here. That's the reason for talking about logic at the beginning, so that I'll have the, the language that we can use to explain, what's right and what's wrong with proofs. Second chapter is all about sets, about functions, cardinality, which means just counting how many elements are in a set. That leads us to talking about sets of real numbers. So open sets, closed sets, compact sets, those are really awesome. And finally, to sequences. We'll spend some time talking about sequences. Now, you may think that's really odd, and that you would not be unreasonable for thinking so, because sequences are really a calculus 2 idea, right? Normally, when you talk about calculus, you're thinking about things like limits, and especially derivatives and integrals and such. And then things like sequences and series show up in the end of calculus 2 usually. So why sequences here? Well, the answer is the theory is much, much easier to understand for sequences than it is for functions and derivatives and integrals and that sort of stuff. So we start with the theory behind sequences. That makes things make much, much more sense if we start with the theory behind those. Then when we get to the second semester, we'll talk about the theory behind limits of functions, and of course derivatives, all about integrals. We'll prove the fundamental theorem of calculus, which you may remember, that's the one that says, that this magical thing about area under curves by adding up those little rectangles, that's really the same as derivatives backwards somehow, right? So we'll prove that, a nice, formal, complete, logical proof, a complete explanation, right, for why that works. And then I think we'll have some time to talk about sequences, not of numbers, but of functions, and some other really cool, more advanced ideas that are really, really awesome. What else? Well, no calculators or notes on the test. So no formula sheets, no nothing like that. You won't need anything like that. You won't need a calculator because we won't really have numbers or arithmetic that you'll need a calculator for. we'll have assignments due, homework assignments due every Sunday night and Thursday night. Everything will always be due at 11:59, um, essentially midnight, on the day that it's due. And the way that the homework will go is something like this. The Sunday homework will be, homework set A for that week, and it's really the easier set of the two. It's designed to be understanding the rules of the game for that week. It's about understanding the definitions and the theorems and the important, things that you have to have memorized essentially for that week. Then the homework on Thursday is using that to write proofs, which again, if proofs sound scary, they're really not. I mean, just think about explanations. They're really just explaining why something's true. So the typical thing is we're going to study something about sets, and so what kind of all different kinds of sets, intersections and unions and complements and all of that. What all those words that I just said means, right? Understanding the definition of all of those words, that's the Sunday homework thing. Then using all of those ideas to write explanations of other stuff, that's a Thursday homework thing. Does that make sense? So we'll have one idea running through the entire week, but homework will show up twice. The reason for this is I was a student once, and I know that if homework were always due on Thursday every week, then what would happen is everyone would start working on it probably Wednesday night or maybe Thursday morning. And the thing is, you can't do that with this stuff. You've got to have time to let it sink in. You got to have time to learn the definitions and be really good with remembering what everything means, because that's the key, right, to being able to write explanations. Right? You can't write explanations about things until you completely understand what those things are. So that's why the homework will come twice a week, right? The first set will typically be shorter, not worth as many points, and it's really just about understanding the rules of the game. The Thursday homework is about playing the game, writing your own explanations. We'll do two tests and a comprehensive final. Uh, they'll be spaced out more or less evenly through the semester. Are the two exams cumulative? The final certainly is. The second exam will have ideas from the first exam on it too, of course, in the way that all math tests do, right? All of it sort of builds on itself. The final is much more comprehensive, though, deliberately than the second exam would be, because it will be over the entire semester. The final will. So here's um, a screenshot of the schedule for the class. So notice it says tentative topics. We might adjust that as we go. Again, this is the first time we've taught this class in this format. Um, we have due dates that are set up Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. Notice that in week one, right, you do have homework due this Thursday. We won't have homework due on Sunday night because classes don't start on Sunday night. For this week, classes, of course, start on Monday. But we will have homework by that Thursday. That's a fairly short section, and it's not very hard. But that'll get us kicked off and ready to go for the rest of the week. Now, you may notice that um, we have Thanksgiving and the final exam immediately after that. One of the quirks of the calendar this year is Thanksgiving comes very late. So if you haven't looked at the schedule, especially if you're taking like live classes on campus, you might remember that the last day to give an exam in another class, obviously we'll have our exam there on scheduled to be the 26th of September and the 31st of October. Happy Halloween. So those are the dates when they're due. Of course, you can take it earlier than that. They'll be open several days before that. The last day in a face-to-face class to give an exam is, I think, the Monday before Thanksgiving, because after Thanksgiving on campus classes, face-to-face classes, have class on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then finals. That's it. So our final exam will be due on Friday. It's the only thing in the whole semester that'll be due on a Friday, and they'll be the final due on Friday, December 6th. Okay, what else? What else should I warn you about or scare you about? You better plan to spend about 6 hours or more every week on the homework. Um, it's not as much as it sounds like, spread over couple different homework sets, right? But it will take some time. This is not the kind of thing that you can just throw together, and start working on the night that it's due, right? If homework is due at midnight and you don't start looking at it until 10:30, then you're not gonna finish it, right? This takes some time. It would be an excellent idea to look over all of the homework problems that are due on Thursday as early in the week as possible, like on Sunday, right? As soon as you get the homework for Sunday turned in, then start looking over those questions you're going to have to do for Thursday, because you need to let them bounce around in your head for a little while. Um, Sometimes you need to, let the answer come to you as you're walking across campus, or going to the school to student teach or whatever. Also, even though the homework is the thing that gets graded, make sure that you do watch the video lectures, and watch them before you try the homework. So, one of the most important things to understand as a student, and sometimes we fail as teachers in explaining this well enough, is what the point of the homework is. Okay, so sometimes it seems like homework is a punishment. It's something that we inflict upon students to punish them and make them suffer to get through the class, right? And that is not what we're doing here at all. The point of the homework is practice. So it is not just something that you just jump through the hoop, get it over with, and then, oh, thank God I am done with that. I don't ever have to think about that anymore. That's exactly the opposite of what it is. The homework is what is some problems to get you started thinking about stuff, to prepare you so you really will be able to do this stuff on the exam. It's like a lot of times I'll tell my students that if you want to be a better free throw shooter, right? So we're talking about jumping through hoops, right? If you want to be a better free throw shooter, so you go out to the basketball court and you start practicing making free throws. So if you just stand there in front of the goal and you just sling the ball at the goal 50 times and say, okay, I've practiced, I'm done, right? You really haven't done anything, right? How do you practice making free throws? Well, you carefully stand, you pay attention to how you're standing, how you're holding the ball, you throw the ball toward the goal. If it goes in, that's awesome. You try to do it that way again. If it was too short or too long or too far to the left or to the right, you make adjustments to see how you can get it back where you want it. Right? You think carefully about what you did, whether it worked or not, why it worked, what might make it work next time, what other kinds of adjustments you could make to make it better. Right? This is metacognition, is the fancy word for that. When you do this, when you're talking about thinking about your homework. So that's the important thing about the homework. It's practice, and I mean that the way you practice making free throws. You have to stop at the end of every question and ask yourself, why did I do it that way? You know, what was important about that? How would I do one that was similar? What could he ask on the test that would be like that I might be able to use these ideas to solve that problem with? Now, one thing about having an online class, and again, I know some of you have had lots of online classes, some of you maybe not so many, but it is slightly more challenging to stay organized, to keep up with the assignments without the reminder of going to class every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Right? When you see your teacher 3 times a week and they're constantly reminding you, hey, we got a test coming up, or we have homework due tomorrow, you know, that is a lot easier than having to keep track of it yourself. Now, hopefully, it will help that we have this rhythm of homework being due on Sundays and Thursdays. That will help some, I hope, and make it easier to stay organized. But it is harder in an online class than in a face-to-face class. What else? Well, make sure that you check your email and your Blackboard, to make sure the discussion board, carefully every day. If you go to the discussion board in Blackboard, there's a button that says subscribe. Make sure you push that button. What that will actually do is send you an email whenever anyone posts something to the discussion board. Because the truth is, I don't usually just look at the Blackboard discussion board, several times a day, for no good reason. I subscribe to the discussion board so that whenever the board gets a post, I get an email, and my email will then beep my phone and buzz my Apple Watch, and that lets me know when something is posted. So again, make sure that you post questions on the discussion board and make sure you answer each other's questions. It's called a discussion board, right? Not just a question board. It's a discussion board for a reason because this is not a correspondence course. This is an online course. So let me take 10 seconds and tell you what I mean by that is you may not have ever heard of a correspondence course, but back in the old days, and it wasn't all that long ago, maybe but even 10 years ago, we were still doing these at Tech. A correspondence course was where you would be given a set of material to work through, essentially a bunch of homework to do. You would do all the homework and you would mail it back to Tech, hence correspondence. Sometimes you would come to Tech and take an exam, and that would give you a grade, right? And there was no real interaction with the professor or with the other students in the class. And that is not what this is, right? There should be lots of interaction with both me as the instructor and with each other, right? Talk to each other on the discussion board. If you want to swap phone numbers or email addresses and be able to talk to each other, don't cheat. This is not talking about cheating on the homework, getting together and you do number one, I'll do number two. And I'm not talking about that, right? I'm talking about, working together, and sharing ideas and being there to support each other and being there to help when you have questions, right? Especially know that I'm here to answer your questions, right? You should never, ever, 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 ever feel like you have to teach yourself, in quotes, right? Sometimes people have bad experiences in online classes and they say, I felt like the whole semester I was just having to teach myself. Now, the truth is, it is your responsibility to actually do the work, right? I can't do the work for you. But you don't have to feel like you have to teach yourself. What you have to do is try to figure it out. And then when you get stuck, email me and I'll be glad to help you. Or if you're on campus, you can always come by my office and I'll be glad to visit with you. Or if you can't come by my office because you're not on campus or for whatever reason, we can video chat with Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. So you shouldn't ever feel alone, like you're struggling trying to figure this out with no one to help you. Right? You may feel like you're struggling trying to figure this out because this is really hard material. That's okay, right? But if you feel like you're struggling because and you feel alone that no one will help you, don't feel that way, right? Get some help. That's what I'm here for. Remember, you can always rewind the video lectures, watch them if you need to. If you get stuck on something, go back and flip through there. You don't have to take notes exactly or necessarily the same way you would if this were a live class and everything that I said disappeared, right? As soon as I said it. But you might want to get a notebook or something, and as you watch the video lectures, mark down maybe the time of the in the video and the thing that I did, or when I worked an example about some kind of limits, and say 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and then what the example was, and just keep that as a notebook. It's essentially like your notes, and that way if you get stuck on the homework and you need to remember, oh no, wait, I don't understand what a compact set was again, where did he do that, and you can look back and say, okay, that was about 5 minutes in, and then scrub with the video till you find that. Or you can also just scrub with the video till you find it. It's pretty easy. These videos are hosted on YouTube, and we have a special player embedded in Blackboard which will play them, and so it works really, really well. You can watch these videos through Blackboard on a computer or a laptop or an iPad or a phone. The only thing is you can't take the exams on an iPad or a phone. You have to have an actual real computer to do that. Again, make sure you email me or post questions when you have questions. It's that may be the most important thing I'll say in this entire video. Okay, anything else? Well, you'll need a computer. Again, not just a laptop or a phone, or not just an iPad or a phone. Laptop is fine. Computer is fine. Anything that's a Mac or even running Linux should work. It's a little trickier to get the plug-in and things to work, but that should be okay. Windows computer, fine. But a phone or an iPad or an Android tablet doesn't have the same kind of Chrome browser as a real computer has Chrome browser, so you can't take the tests on those. You'll have to have a fast enough internet connection essentially to be able to watch YouTube videos. If you can watch YouTube videos, it's good enough because that's where the videos will be coming from. Um, it helps to have a printer, but it's not necessary. You will definitely need a scanner or much more commonly some sort of scanning app. And as you go through the start here activities, I will send you a link of to lots of scanning apps. You can just pick one that you like. Just make sure that you scan as a PDF file, not as a JPEG or a PNG file or something. You'll need a webcam with a microphone, and again, if you have a laptop, they almost certainly have one built in. If you have a Mac, an iMac, that probably will too. So most people have webcams and microphones now. It's not usually a big problem. So what next? Well, finish the rest of the start here stuff in Blackboard. Um, Remember that you have to work really hard to understand this stuff, and it's not just about doing the homework and getting through it and whew, I'm done, I can forget about it, right? Think about what you did, why you did it, that idea of thinking about your thinking. That's the point of the homework. And again, most importantly, ask for help when you need it because that's what I'm here for.